live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is for you guys. Let's see if it's actually live. Let me know you guys are hearing me okay, if you're already in the stream. Okay, I'm going to try to start making sure I'm more focused on what we're talking about today. Hi, Christopher. In about 5 minutes, so that if you're tuning in later, you can skip ahead 5 minutes if you want to get straight to more of the discussion. My goal of, hi Linda, my goal of these is to, it can be a Q&A. You guys can ask me about anything, but I also have a general topic to discuss when you guys aren't asking me questions. So you guys are going to see some video, some BTS of a job I did. Although, you know what? Let's wait on that. Let's wait on that until more people get here. Hi, Karen. How's everyone doing? How's everyone holding up? How's the audio of the video? Also, let me know. You guys are going to hear me. I'm really sarcastic and sometimes, so don't take stuff I say in the video too serious. I'm getting better at the figuring out the streaming software, so I can do like a picture-in-picture now, that kind of thing. You guys can see some of the actual photos. These are all raw photos, converted to JPEGs, and that's it. There is a delay, so if you guys like respond to me, I might not know what you're responding to, because I may have said it like a minute ago. Just keep that in mind. So, still gonna hold off on talking about portrait photography. Did I tell you I was using OBS? Or you can tell somehow? I'm not sure how the picture-in-picture ended up like not so high. It wasn't originally in the that far from the corner. So again, we're going to talk professional portraits. I'd love to hear your questions, and I'll address them once we have more people. I don't know what your hobby is. Tech. I know you like tech. You're my tech support guy. You like anime. Do you have a secret gaming channel I don't know about? So most of the gear you guys are seeing me use here are I do not have anymore because it was actually stolen. Okay, but how do you know it was OBS is the question. Okay. You saw the previous live stream. Any beginner photography? Is that your question? Like, you want me to gear it toward beginners, or are you asking if there's anyone that is a beginner in the stream? Oh yeah, the first time I streamed, I really didn't figure it all out yet, and I didn't know how to like not. I don't even honestly. I'm not gonna lie. I don't even know how I figured it out. Like all of a sudden, I just knew I was streaming. Like I was just streaming all of a sudden. I don't know what I clicked, but now I actually understand what's going on with the software. Um, Message retracted. I didn't know you could do that. Okay. Please continue to ask questions. I'm going to start talking, and I won't shut up. I'll just do my thing and keep talking. So, what we're looking at today is a job from about 2 years ago where I was commissioned to photograph about 200 different people over the course, I think it was 3 days, 2 full days and a half day. Basically, I don't recall, but they were at least 8-hour days. They might have been like 10 to 13 hours. I can't recall at this point. And they were nonstop. I didn't get breaks. You will see some footage where like I'm so exhausted that I'm like on the floor. I exaggerate. I was just having fun. You got to keep it light. You got to like joke around, and it's a distraction from the reality that it is really hard work. Constantly staying on, and what I mean by staying on is like engaged with people. I'm complicated. I don't know if I'd consider myself an introvert or an extrovert. I'm this weird mix, but I teach, I do YouTube, I'm talking to you guys now, and it does drain me. Like, I love people, but I get drained by constantly feeling like I have to be on. So it's exhausting work for me, and you guys will see that in my face. But yeah, we shot hundreds of photos. I'm not sure how many people we got in total. You guys can see the results in the bottom left. These are completely unedited. I may have like added color, contrast and sharpening to them and converted it to JPEG, and that's it. People were able to contact me and get additional retouching, but most didn't need it. Most didn't want it. I think I did one retouching out of like, I'm going to estimate 70-ish people. Only one person requested it. Really, you should not be relying, in my opinion, my philosophy is like you should not rely on retouching to make your images work. I'm the laziest editor in the world. I don't like editing. I used to enjoy darkroom printing, but that was very hands-on, whereas when I'm editing digital, it feels like I'm looking at this little box that I don't enjoy at all. Pulling dials and whatnot. To some people, it might be the same thing. You're manipulating an image. Manipulating an image is manipulating an image. But to me, not really clicking around with the mouse does not compare to actually, manipulating equipment, holding the print in your hand, that kind of thing. I'm glad you made it. I thought you wouldn't make it. What time is it in France right now? I actually looked that up because I know a lot of people are in different parts of the world and weren't able to make the live stream. So eventually I think I'm going to have these live streams at different times of the day. What I'm trying to do now, with COVID-19, and I'm trying to have a schedule, and I'm thinking 10:15, I want to live stream every day, show you guys a new job. But I might throw in some random ones as well. Can you make the photo bigger, crop it, and make it larger? Can barely see the image. I didn't consider people using a phone. Yeah, you guys are going to see, though, because I don't really... So normally, it wouldn't be so hard. You guys are going to see all the magic happen right now, I think. There we go. Okay, there will be a delay. I did fix it. Let me know if that helped. What part did you not agree with? I'm just pouring myself more coffee. Um, you guys let me know, by the way, if you have questions. So, I'm on an iPad and the image is small for me. Okay, by the time you guys are hearing me talk, it should have been already fixed. Let me know.
What's that from?
That one movie with that one actor I really like. No, I know it. I know him. He dated Jennifer Aniston for a little bit, right? He's in a movie with her. Yeah, Vince Vaughn.
I'll check in with you guys in a few minutes. So,
I didn't see it, but
back to the job. I had,
it's turned into a meme. Yeah.
there you go, headshots. We have a little poster.
People just throw that.
So I was working with a makeup artist and an assistant who is also my girlfriend. I had to have her help me to make it work, budget-wise. I didn't tell them it was going to be my girlfriend. I just had to hire her as a cost measure. But they provided me with a room with one bed, even, which was pretty funny. I'm like, all right, well, this will work. But, and it's a little bit bigger. Okay, good. I view on phone. That's lots of people will. I could get it to the TV. Okay. Well, you guys just let me know if it's working now. Okay. So, back to what I was saying. It is draining work because you constantly have to work with people. You need to get them excited. If you need a smile, your energy is contagious and people mirror you. And so having a big smile, if you want them to smile, is really important. Having good energy. I tell people, like, what I do for a living is read people. I read people and build rapport with people. If there's one thing I feel like I can do extremely well, it feels like my photography superpower, it would be reading people, being able to predict smiles, etc. And that ability also translates to working with people and building rapport very quickly. It's incredibly important. Being the best technical photographer in the world won't mean much if you can't make meaningful images or images that capture something authentic, a big smile, etc. So, you're going to see me laughing, having fun. I also have a makeup artist who was hired separately. And she is the best makeup artist I've ever worked with. She understood the photography so that we were on the same page. She understood my objective was, what I was doing. She knew how, if I was tired, she knew how to pick up my pace. I knew how to pick up her pace by basically, there were times where she kind of helped me guide the people along, get a bigger smile out of them, etc. Thumbnail size okay when viewed full screen. Okay, good. I'm gonna actually just provide you guys with a link to the work. I'm totally okay with that. Like I said, this is the raw job. I have no problem sharing it with you guys. I am a working photographer. I'm not doing this to bump up my ego and show you guys like my absolute best. The goal of this is to show you guys an average job so you understand, especially if you're a new photographer, you understand what the gig actually is. You understand what photographers are actually doing. None of that, pretension. 1 second, I have to go out of full screen. And I'm going to set that up for you guys. One moment. I'm going to see if I can log in this way. Just give me a second. While I'm pulling up the website, please, if you have any questions, go ahead and put those in the comments right now, and I'll get to them in a minute.
That's not what it
Sure, Meg. Yeah, sure.
Alt left click the window. Okay, I'm getting some tech support. hang on, because that's also got to turn my audio off. All right. Gee, I'll figure out all the tech stuff after. I gotta log into my Smug Mug. So I'm really glad I had the foresight to record all of this. This was over 2 years ago now. I've been trying to do it with more of my work, but the reality is a lot of I shoot events primarily. I mean, that's really what I do. And the problem with that is it's really hard to grab footage for you guys when I'm shooting events. I think having a flash bracket would help, because then I could mount a POV camera, but I don't have one. I have no income at the moment because of COVID, and so I have not, there's the link to the work, I put it in the comments, so I have not been able to make that purchase, and I'm not shooting right now anyway, but eventually the objective will be to be able to film while I'm shooting events. Alright, I'm back. Let's see, any questions? Location, pair of high windows with backlight was chosen on purpose. Okay, so the location was pretty much assigned. They said, would this work? And the windows behind actually were adding a color cast to my backdrop. It was warmer than my strobe lighting, but I didn't mind. I actually liked the look, but I didn't choose it. Often you're just, you just have to understand how to make things work. If you understand lighting and you're not memorizing techniques, you can make things work. So the way I have a few lighting setups, that said, that I do use, but I'm always experimenting. I enjoy what I do. I don't want to feel like a monkey, and so I'm tinkering, I'm changing it, but more or less, I have a few different setups I would quickly go through. If there was a big line, I might get 5 shots. If I knew I got a great shot, I'd be like, all right, we're good. But some people I spent more time with, and we tried different looks, different lighting setups. I have some stuff I use for women, I have some stuff I use for men. It just depends on the person. People will inspire you differently. Sometimes you're working with someone and you don't feel terribly inspired. I'm being honest about this. Sometimes you're you love their look. There's something about their features, whatever, and you feel more creative as a result. But everyone, I enjoy working with everyone. I've said, I did a video on this. You have to see the best in people. You have to, I say, fall in love with them, and I mean platonically, of course, but you have to see the absolute best in people if you want to capture the absolute best in them. So I just love people. I love talking to them. I love working with them. I enjoy what I do. But if you're snarky and don't like the people you're working with, you're not going to produce great work. You're not going to capture their best. So back to lighting. I'm using a beauty dish as my key light. If you're not familiar with what a key light is, it's your main light. It's the strongest output. Your secondary light is a fill light. You could also use a reflector as a fill. Here we have a good shot. Upcoming, actually, there is that lag. But you guys are going to see a shot of my setup in a second, I think. Or you saw it, actually, a minute ago. I'm reversing my lag because I'm watching on YouTube as well. But I'm using the beauty dish as my key light. I have a reflector as my fill light in this situation, and then I have a second light as a rim light gridded in order to add a highlight. But I've changed up my setup throughout. At times I add a strip box to the left, camera left. Depends on the person. Sometimes I'm using a hair light, sometimes I'm using a strip box to add I'm not sure how I would describe it, but sort of a contouring light on the left side. Okay, Linda, curious on if you need permission from client to film the event job for educational purposes. It's always good to ask. I'm not going to answer that legally because I can't. But people knew we were filming, and people didn't have an issue. So I would just use common sense overall. Thank you. Sometimes mixed light can help and add that tad of warm tone clients like, then you edit less. Yeah. I mean, ideally though, you're going to have, most importantly, you have consistent lighting so that it reduces the amount of editing you have to do. But fixing color was not difficult. You guys can see the color casting created. Also, it has to do with the white balance I was shooting in, where it ended up a lot warmer than what you guys are seeing. And so you end up seeing like almost a brownish backdrop. When color, I probably wouldn't have them quite as warm as you guys are seeing them. But like I said, you guys are seeing raw files just converted. I wanted you guys to see exactly what they looked like without retouching. A little critique of my own work from me would be that a lot of the shots you're going to see too much headspace above. And that's because 5D Mark III does not have a focus point high enough, as high up as I'd like it. And so what I end up doing is getting more headspace. But I also was aware that I would be cropping, that these are just raw files, and they could be cropped in different ways. So let me know in the comments if you guys have shot anything like this, if you guys plan on shooting anything like it, and what your questions are. So you guys are going to see I'm always tinkering with my lighting. I just do things manually. I could do it, without actually manually adjusting it. There are ways, but I never found it to be an issue to just quickly dial up or dial down a light if I needed to change its output. All right, glad you enjoy it, Karen. If you're just joining, again, you can click the link and go right to the website. So, like I said, all my gear was stolen. What was it, like 2 months ago? It was stolen in December, I think, but I didn't realize it was stolen because I usually leave all my lighting in my trunk just in case I need it. And I hadn't really looked in there until like January. Maybe it was February. I have a lull in work. I don't work a lot toward the second half of December, and sometimes I won't work in January. In 10 years, I had one really good January, and I was so thrilled. It was the year I went to Europe, and it was a year I felt like I made it as a photographer, like where I wasn't just getting by. I had extra in my account, and I went to Europe, and it was like a lifelong dream. I grew up not poor, but not privileged. I didn't get to go to Europe every summer. And yeah, I was like, I think I was 30. But going on my own dime, getting no help, doing it all on my own was one of the most rewarding feelings I ever experienced in my entire life. I went for an entire month. And the best part of it, not only did I have a good year leading up to it, but I had a big job booked in January. And as a photographer, at least when you're shooting events mostly, you don't know what your next month usually looks like. I book most gigs 2 weeks out. And so there's some anxiety going to Europe for a month and worrying about coming back, like, am I going to be booking jobs and whatnot? But having one lined up really helped out a lot, mentally. I'm getting a question. Session with restaurant, 17 waiters and waitresses for a group shot. So you're responding to if you've shot anything like this before. Yeah, I've also done like smaller gigs where it's an office, maybe you have like 8 to 10 people, and those are fun because you can often be more creative. Sometimes they want environmental portraits, so shots of them at their desk, that kind of thing. All right, Drunk Saru. I've always found it harder to take photos of people with light lights so close. So my method has been to use larger lights, put it several feet away from the subject. Downside is need larger area to work. What is the challenge exactly? And I want to talk about why I put my lighting so close in a second, but here you guys are going to see, again, there's a delay, but you guys see there's a shot of the beautiful venue. I've actually shot here more than once. So I won't get into why, but I'm watching it. I have to full screen on SmugMug right now, and so I can't record. I'm basically watching the delay. So it's kind of confusing. It would be better if you guys actually went to the website, but it's up to you guys. So the reason I want to hear why you put your lighting, you don't like your lighting so close, and I'm going to talk about why I put mine close. It's going to give you a softer look. It's about relative size, not so much like having a huge light source, but then having it really far away, it won't be very soft, right? But having a smaller light source, the closer you put it to the subject, relatively, it's much larger. It's kind of like the sun. The sun is a gigantic light source, but it's very far away. It becomes a very small light source, and so it doesn't exactly look soft. It's a hard light source. However, if you moved, let's say, 1,000 miles away from the sun, that light source would then wrap around you, and you wouldn't really have those shadows you get from a hard light source like the sun when it's really far away. So if you want a softer light source, you need to move closer to the subject. I gotta turn the video back on, I'm realizing, because I didn't loop it. Give me 1 second here. There we go.
Hey, Marion.
Hi, what's up?
Hi.
What's this for?
Just for fun. The mic.
That's what I thought.
I see your point that you're tinkering with the... Okay, that makes sense.
She's my master.
So next, we're talking about not just how close I put my light. I put it close up because then it wraps around, but I also position it a very specific way. You don't want to take your light source and line up the middle of it with the person. You actually want to feather it across them. So imagine like if you're looking at your light source, you want the far side of the light source to line up with the person, not the middle of the light source. And then what happens is it kind of feathers around them, and it actually you can shoot without a fill light in this way. I've done that. And especially if you position, let's say you don't have a reflector, you can also position your setup near a white wall, and then the white wall opposite of your key light becomes your fill light. So there's a lot of ways you can do things, and again, it goes back to understanding lighting, not just memorizing techniques. This is really important. If you only need to understand 3 things about light, obviously it's more complex, but there's really 3 fundamental things to know. You have the amount of light, which is just how much light do you have, your output. You have the quality of the light, where you have 2 extremes. You have hard light, you have soft light. Of course, you can have anything in between. So let's talk about what a hard light source would be. A hard light source would be the sun, a light bulb without a lampshade, a flashlight, a strobe without any reflector, etc. A soft light would be indirect light. There's a lot of synonyms to know. Indirect, diffused, soft, it's all the same. An indirect light source would be shade. It would be under an overhang. It would be light entering through a window, unless the sun was at an angle where it was hitting the window directly. That's different. It would be a light bulb with a lamp shade. So anytime light is reflecting or passing through a material, it's going to be softer. And that's what if you guys get a shot of my beauty dish, you're going to see it's not bare. I have what's called a sock. And the beauty dish is basically firing. It hits a little reflector, like a circular reflector on the inside, bounces back into the dish. The dish then spreads the light, but then I also have a sock. I could take the sock off, and then I would have a harder light source. I would rate a beauty dish without a sock as like middle of the road. It's not hard, it's not soft, it's kind of crisp. It's still pretty flattering. I really do like it, but for this type of work, I'm going to use as soft a light source as possible. We want it to be flattering. Next, we have direction of light. Direction of light is pretty self-explanatory, but the direction of your light really changes the look of an image. It gives it depth. It makes it three-dimensional. It's creating a tonality. Whereas if you don't have direction, let's say on-camera flash, when we think of on-camera flash, I think of point-and-shoot cameras from the 90s because that's, when I grew up. It's very unflattering. I call it like the toad face or the frog face. When you photograph someone with a on-camera flash at night, you get that black hole look where they're washed out, featureless, it's flat. So having direction to your light gives it some depth. It makes it more three-dimensional. And that's lighting. Now, also, another thing I would here and there do is I would use a reflector below the subject. I would have them hold it usually because it's out of the frame. And that would add some fill light into the shadows underneath. If someone has dark circles under their eyes, like I do on this day, because I did not sleep enough. So they gave me accommodations, but not the night before. And what that meant is driving all the way to Palos Verdes, which is really far in Los Angeles. It's far. Like, you get off the freeway to go there, and then you drive for another, I don't know what it is, 15, 20 miles, through hills to get there. It's up where Trump has one of his, resorts up there. But, yeah, it's far, and loading the gear and getting there in time and then setting up, I think I had to wake up at 4 a.m. I'm not a morning person. I was not a fan. So I was really tired the first day. The first day was actually the hardest. Getting there, setting up, all that. I am so calm at work. I am the calmest. It's almost meditative at times. It really is when I'm getting into the flow. But getting to a job, there's way more anxiety than the actual job. So what I do is I always leave. Basically what I do is I look at Google Maps and I double the time. Worst case, you get there an hour early and you hang out, or you stop for coffee. It doesn't matter. But for me, the anxiety is just making sure I get there in time. And it almost never. I've been early to almost every single job I've ever been to. I don't know if I've ever been more than 5 to 10 minutes late if I've been late. So it works. Google Maps, double the time. All right, you guys have any questions? Until then, regarding the lights, usually, you're shooting with a narrow focal length that you could get the lights pretty close, almost up to the shoulder, especially if you're shooting with the 135 millimeter lens. Like I said, I enjoy the work. I play around, I try different things, and I was shooting between two different lenses, my 85 millimeter and my 135 millimeter. It's hard to explain why I would choose one over the other. We can talk about, your general knowledge. 135 millimeter will compress more than an 85 millimeter. We know that's true. And we know compression can be good if someone has a large feature, like a large nose. Yes. But outside of that, I am working intuitively, and just I couldn't tell you why I would choose one over the other until I'm actually doing it. So during the job, I would try different setups. I would follow my gut and just try a different lens. Also, it depended on the posing. So in regard to the look of the photos, I'm trying to I don't want them to look boring. I don't want to just double light it, but I'm not looking to like break the mold entirely. I mean, these are professional corporate headshots. These are the photos that people are going to use on LinkedIn, that kind of thing. I don't need to go too crazy. I don't need to like express myself creatively. Like I try different things, etc. But I'm not exactly like, it's not about me. I'm providing a service. Accommodation is not mandatory. Question. I I requested it for all the days I was working. I don't think I thought to request it for the night before. But this kind of job, yeah. I mean, sometimes, look, here's the truth. Sometimes you're going to skip the accommodation just to book the job. Like, if you know their budget's not going to allow it, usually sometimes you have to work with them. Let's be real. Like, you can't always just demand things. There are a lot of photographers you're competing with, and sometimes you have to kind of make a concession. But holy cow, I would have regretted taking this job if I didn't have the accommodations, because I didn't have to even break things down. I think they even let me keep it up. I was surprised. So every day I kind of like lowered the backdrop. I think I maybe took the lights out. Nobody was going to steal it here, but I may have like taken the lights to my room, that kind of thing. But I wasn't having to break down everything, and that made a big difference. But yeah, driving out there every day, I would have killed myself. Like, it would have been so bad. Let's talk about consistency. So basically, this was a conference, and as an added service, they were providing headshots to everyone that was participating. And so therefore, like, it's not like they're all going on one company website where they had to look exactly the same. That said, I'm usually making sure I'm not like going too wild. Like I said, I'm pretty consistent with the looks I'm doing. I'm trying different things, but usually I try different things after I've gotten like a few standard like go-tos. You guys can probably see that in watching me work. Just pouring myself more coffee. So a lot of what I'm doing is creating different angles. You don't want very flat portraits. Sometimes I do that kind of squared off look, but usually I'm looking to create some sort of dynamic motion, and I do that by having them lean in, having them turn 3/4 toward my light while they look at me. I never really learned posing. I kind of just, I think, figured it out. It's possible when I first started out, I was looking at what other people were doing, but I just kind of figured it out on my own for the most part. Yeah. Yeah. It's a fine line, where you don't want to leave money on the table, but you don't want to lose the job. It's tough. It's tough pricing. I know that. You should charge what you're worth, but what you think you're worth doesn't really matter. The market dictates what you can get, not you. That's the truth. And everyone, like, there's a lot of pricing videos on YouTube, I'm sure. I probably watched one at some point where they tell you, I know I've watched one, and I know what they do is they tell you, here's how you determine what you're worth, and you itemize everything, right? But if you itemize everything and then it adds up to $10,000 and the client has $2,000 and you have 10 photographers all offering to do the job for $1,000, I mean, you might have to walk away from the job or take a concession, or take a hit. It doesn't matter what you think you're worth. I'm on the, you'd think, I've been doing this for a while. I don't think I'm the best photographer that ever lived. If I actually thought that, I would tell myself otherwise, because you can't think you're the best or there's no room to grow. But I'm on the end of the spectrum in which I underprice, if anything. I have too much PTSD of struggling. When I first started out, I started out in the Great Recession. And so I empathize for anyone starting or about to start out, because it's going to be really tough. I predict this is going to be worse in 2008. But I started in 2008. And yeah, I mean, people were really tight with money. And unfortunately, in recessions, you'd think maybe it would thin out the competition, but it actually increases the competition. Photography has just gotten more and more competitive, more and more and more, and the reason being that the barriers to entry get lower and lower. So buying an expensive camera, or even now they're getting cheaper and cheaper, won't make you a good photographer, but it makes the worst of us better. It's lowering the floor. I mean, it's raising the floor, not lowering the ceiling, really. That makes sense. But the biggest reason, so in a recession, more people are going to look for a side hustle. And the more people doing that, the harder it's going to be to work full time. So you can make money as a photographer, but if you're not at the top or just really business savvy, it's going to be difficult. But even being at the top when you have an oversaturated market is really tough. So the example I used to explain it was when the iPad came out. It was like a marvel, right? Everyone was so impressed by the iPad. And then Android tablets quickly started coming out to try to compete. That iPad was always perceived as the best tablet, still would be, I'm assuming. But once you had the first Android tablets that only cost $200, it got harder for Apple to sell their iPad for like the original one. What was it, like $700 or something? I don't know. So it's hard. Like, you'll always be able to charge more if you're good, but all the bottom feeders are lowering the market. It makes it tough. But the real reason I'm going to tell you guys why the biggest change to the photography industry actually kind of predates me. And I learned this from the guy I used to shoot with when I started out. I got a job as a second shooter. And what he used to what he told me is that prior to social media, you pretty much had to band together in order to succeed as a photographer. You had to band together as a studio in order to have a marketing budget to put your work out there. But with social media, you have the lone photographer. That was like a phenomenon, really, at the time, where they didn't need to be a part of a studio. You could just, hey guys, I shoot weddings now, on Facebook. You could use social media, all of that. I didn't. I regret it, in all honesty. I was resistant. I came up in that period, but I've never liked social media myself. And so for me, I relied on word of mouth. And it worked. Actually did really well. Also, I identified Yelp as a winning strategy really early on. Like, I understood what Yelp could be. And at the time when there were very few photographers on it, at most they had 3 to 7 reviews. I had 100 5-star reviews. I understood. And so I didn't always tell people. I didn't make it a campaign. I didn't incentivize people to review me on Yelp. But, I let them know I was on it. You don't want to push it. Usually, you don't want to push it. What if you push it and they're not thrilled with your work? But I was confident. But I'm just saying that is a danger if you push it and they're kind of like lukewarm on your work. They give you 1 3-star review, it ruins your 5-star ratings, right? So I got in Yelp early. I had over 100 5-star reviews. You guys can check McMilliman on Yelp now. It's not as many, and that's because they started really aggressively filtering out your reviews. And they tell you it's an algorithm and that it's in order to protect the user base they need to make sure people are verified and legit, right? I get that. But I mean, I didn't have fake reviews, and having over 100, now I have like 50 or something. So that's an issue. And then it got more competitive. You had more and more people on Yelp. Suddenly, overnight, it felt like you had several people with like 100 5-star reviews. And so it became oversaturated in itself. Their practices became kind of shady. They would filter out your reviews in order, unless you paid, basically. They deny it. I don't believe it. You know, they do take action against you. They do not admit it, but they do. They do take action against you if you say no to their advertising. I've seen it happen. They told me once, they tried to tell me it was like a glitch. Like, oh yeah, and you know, they try to give you an explanation that was just nonsense, and I didn't buy it, but yeah. That's happened to me, where for 2 years actually, because I gave up on the platform, my business didn't even show up. So there's a problem. All right, I see that woman coming back to pick up a business card when you're shooting the bald guy. Any ideas how much percentage of your business comes from close range local self-promotion? I don't know. I have no idea. I'm going to be honest. So like I said, I built my business with word of mouth up until more recently, when I completely switched over to shooting events. And I assume not everyone's watched all my videos, so I'll explain why. I got into photography professionally. Hang on a second. I got into photography in order to be closer to what I love. I knew it wouldn't be like the end all be all creative fulfillment, you know, that I could have dreamed of. It was like, hey, I've hated every job I've ever had in my entire life, as much as I am passionate about photography. I can't see myself doing a 9-to-5. And so I decided I'm going to pursue photography. And then on the side, I mean, when I'm not shooting professionally, I'll actually pursue my own artwork. And that's why I got involved in it. And I started with weddings because it was easy, like most people, you know. It's something you can start doing, or family portraits. If you know a family or two, if you know someone getting married, you know, you do it for free at first to like build a portfolio, and then you're in it, right? Starting an event, starting in fashion, it's different. So I started in that because I could get into it. It was not hard. But at the time, the first few years, I grew to really hate it. And that's because I didn't understand what I just said. I didn't understand that it didn't have to be creatively fulfilling. It just had to be a job I really enjoyed, where I got to be creative. And when I felt like I needed it to be the end all be all, I got really bitter, especially if anyone would talk down to me. You know, like you fancy yourself an artist, and when they call you, hey, camera guy, you know, get over here or something. You get, when I was younger, I had more ego, not in like the arrogant way, but just ego. Like I didn't let go of myself in that sense. And I hated it. I hated being talked down to. I hated feeling like I was a monkey holding a camera. And that was really hard. And I really didn't like the wedding industry, because I felt like everyone was doing things because it was, quote, what they were supposed to do. You know, all the traditions, quote, traditions, were really just like industries, right? They weren't rooted in any real culture. And I hated that part. I hated watching these couples spend a lot of money on stuff that really was meaningless. And I'm not talking about like the actual like ceremony and everything that had meaning. I mean, they were spending money on stupid stuff, you know, that they were told they were supposed to do. And I didn't like it. And so I moved away from it. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to shoot events because I really like it. And mostly it's low energy for me. It doesn't drain me. Being at an event, getting into a flow state as I'm just documenting and capturing stuff, it doesn't drain me. The edit is really easy. I don't have to spend a lot of time on the edit. As I said, I really don't like editing. So yeah, that's how I ended up moving into events. And when I started in events, I'm trying to actually keep on target with what I'm talking about. When I started shooting events, then I realized the word of mouth, even though I had been shooting events, but I wanted to do it more exclusively. The word of mouth wasn't going to be there as much. And so then I had to start thinking about marketing. And that's when I learned about search engine optimization and everything else. But that could be a whole video. Let's take a look at what Douglas had to say. What's your philosophy regarding sitting or standing during the sessions? Okay, I'll answer that. I see you said something else, but let me answer that first. There are times where you guys will see in the video, I put my knee on a chair as a way to kind of like get lower and not exhaust my back. It does add up, a camera, to some it might feel really heavy. To me, it doesn't feel heavy, but over 8 hours, it starts to. So one thing I will do is I'll put the camera down as often as possible, and I will sit in between shooting. I don't have a problem if I wouldn't be lazy and sit down while photographing someone unless like sitting down gave me a more optimum position to shoot in. But yeah, you guys are going to see me like I stand on a chair. I do all kinds of stuff on a chair, like I'm using the chair at times to rest, but I'm never using it to rest over getting the right shot. I'm usually like taking advantage of it if I, need to get lower, that kind of thing, or get higher. Doug, I usually have them stand. Oh, you're asking about the client. No, I'm usually having them sit for a variety of reasons. I'm able to create different angles. For example, a lot of the guys I have lean in, I'll have them kind of do a 45-degree angle toward the light. Then I'll have them lean into their near forearm, so they're kind of resting their forearm on their thigh, and shots like that I can't do if they're standing up. There's not too much you can do when they're standing, in my opinion. Any other questions? Samantha, yeah, I'm not working. I'm not working. I don't anticipate working for 6 months to a year, in all honesty. I think you're going to have smaller jobs come back first. I think birthday parties, that kind of thing. But I think larger corporations are going to be more skittish. They're going to be worried about liability of having a large event. Companies retract in a recession, and I'm sure we are in one or will be in one, and I don't see them having the budget or the desire to do like extra events. I don't see it coming back anytime soon, in all honesty. And so I am not going to give up on what I do, but I do have to pivot. I do have to kind of adapt in order to survive right now. And I'm not interested in changing up the type of work I do. It was a tremendous amount of work to basically build a specialty, to really carve out a part of the event photography market. It wasn't easy, actually. And so I'm not going to now retool my website for headshots or anything else. And the reality is that headshots will come back sooner, but headshots are going to be tough. They're not coming back that soon. There's not that much. All forms of photography will be touched by this, I think. And so for me, I'm probably going to start leaning on my teaching. I'm going to keep growing YouTube. I don't make money from YouTube really right now. In fact, even that hasn't been unaffected by the recession or COVID. I'm making far less than I was. Not that I was making much with YouTube and Patreon. I was only making $100 about combined, and now I'm making on YouTube ads. I'm making like 30, and so it's gonna be tough. Okay, questions. The one thing I'll say is that their clothes sometimes look better standing. Okay. So that's one thing, having a makeup artist that knows what they're doing, not just the makeup. She understood the angles, she understood like the photography, and she understood what to look for. She was looking for flyaway hairs and helping with clipping clothes back down. Like sometimes you'll put a clip behind someone to make it more form-fitting, that kind of thing. And she was there on hand to do all of that. So if I missed it, she had it. Or if I caught it, I could say, oh, hey, Taylor, can you quickly grab that? And I didn't know her, actually. And that was the beauty of it. Like, just it was really refreshing to work with someone that really understood the photography. Let's see. You have a good point. Sitting is easier to shoot on the back. How do you ask for permission to use these images for your own promotion? In contracts, after session, during a chat? Well, ideally you are going to have a release form. I usually, as the copyright owner, I don't really, it depends. I think, I'll admit in my standard contract, I don't actually have anything other than that I am the copyright owner and I'm licensing the images to you. But I don't actually include anything for as a release. Certain projects I worked on is a little bit different. If you go to my website, you can go to People Who Train. I think it's an acronym on it, PWT. I had everyone that participated in that project fill out a form. But also I think that might make a book one day. We'll see if I decide to do that. So that kind of thing, yeah. But for your average job, I'm actually not. People understand, you're going to use the web photos on your website too. I mean, you shouldn't rely on that. I'll admit I'm not perfect, but there's an understanding, that you're going to add the work to your portfolio if you like it, that kind of thing. Okay, answered that question. Any other questions? How many of you guys are continuing to work while you listen to me and not reading the comments? I'm curious. Like how you guys are watching these. However you'd like, Samantha, like anything, I'll admit everything helps right now, especially like when you do this as a full-time gig and to have your income wiped out. I still don't know if I'll get unemployment or how that will work out. I will, per G's request or encouragement, a friend of mine, I'm going to do a whole video on that. There is a built-in way right below the comment section where you can like click on the $sign, show support, that kind of thing. Honestly, if I made like $10 per live stream, I'd be thrilled. Like, it just makes me feel like I did something. Like, it sets me up for the rest of the day. I know it's a tiny amount, but it's just like, yeah, what I'm doing is helping people. It makes me feel good. It's not the money.
I'll wear a wig. I shaved. It's passable. Just have to get him blacked out drunk and then catch him. Wait, that. Okay. Go away.
This is reality TV. I don't care.
Douglas says he's watching/listening while he updates his website. I should check out your work. I don't remember if I have before. I often ask people if I could see their work. But if you guys want to share your work, put it in the comments. Let's take a look. I do shoot a little higher at times. Usually you're bringing their eye level to you, and that can be done by being above them or having them bring their chin down. So when I'm having them lean into the shots, usually I don't have to have them bring the chin down. If you're having them standing, often you're going to want them to bring their chin down. You want to have their eye line closer to you. When they bring the chin down, it brings the eyes closer to you. One other thing, back to why I don't like having them stand straight, a lot of it is that it becomes more difficult. I'm not able to get into, it's harder to get higher or lower, or, depends on their height, but it can be harder to get the angle you want when they're standing, whereas when they're sitting, I feel like I have more latitude to get different angles. Logistical stuff, you guys will see that they sent it out to people, not me, and what we did is we got the name by having them hold their name tag up for the first shot, and that way whoever was going to distribute the images knew how to send it out, who to send it out to. Linda, or Douglas, when was this recorded? Like when the job was, that was 2 years ago, I think, or 2 years exactly in July or August, now that I'm thinking about it. They do it every other year, and hopefully they'll have me back in August. Linda, I'm working and watching. I couldn't do this if I was in the office. Yeah. Once things return to normal for people, I'm thinking I'll start doing like a weekend live stream. It's probably going to be at a random time though, because hopefully I'll be working again, and most of my work is on the weekend, but usually in the evening. I have to update my own website. I'm the worst at it, I'll be honest, and I'll admit, building my business, once I got into the flow of things, I got too reliant on word of mouth. I didn't worry about the little things like updating my website, and I didn't have all, and I should have. You want your best work, but what I'm doing, I always try to get the most out of everything, and so making these videos for you guys, it's giving me an opportunity to go through the work as well. So I'm going more or less chronologically from recent jobs until like 10 years ago. I'm just going through them and cataloging my work, meaning like rating them and all that. I've done that before. It's very frustrating, but I had a hard drive crash that had the catalog, my Lightroom catalog on it, and so I lost it. And rather than revert to an older one, because I hadn't backed up in a really long time, I just said forget it, and I just started a new one. I think she did both. As far as a makeup artist, I think she was doing. Usually they do hair and makeup, but she was the best. She was powdering everyone, so everyone looked good. It made it my job so much easier, although you can argue it would be beneficial for them to need retouching if you want to make the extra income, but I don't think in that small way. I'm not always just trying to make money, but you could technically, make more if you don't have a makeup artist.
I didn't see it, but it's a meme. It's turned into a meme, yeah. Your money, baby, and you don't even know it. Yeah. People just throw that around all the time, don't they?
No,
How many people have you said that to?
your money just you.
Ooh, time to screenshot.
Your money, baby. Your money.
Okay, Linda, what are your questions? Take advantage. I know you don't get to watch as much YouTube usually, so while you have me,
One more big smile. There we go.
I'm going to start calling people out.
Well, thank you.
I actually shot a wedding at this venue, like, when I first started out, probably like 2009. Sometimes you show up at a venue and you're like, oh, I've been here.
seriously your middle name?
Michelangelo, Niccolo, Nolan.
They didn't even give you a chance.
Do I look good in the white? Good interview.
Fire, spicy. Those little.
All right, I'm gonna go for a few more minutes, maybe till 11:30 my time. That would be 9 minutes. So make sure you get your questions in.
What a diva.
I'm becoming a good actor.
If you guys know any photographers that would benefit from this video, please send it to them. Put it on social media. That would help me a lot.
You got that from the Nicholas.
I know I'm not
Cage
doing
masterclass.
the kind of content. I'm not making the kind of content that gets widespread, mass appeal. I'm not doing like top 5 cameras of 2020, that kind of thing.
There
How many
you go.
folks did you capture that day? I don't even know. I think we might be talking, assuming the gallery I made here, I think it's updated so I could count. Feels like about 70 people. I'm not sure.
You're gonna have grandchildren.
There weren't really breaks. There were like small breaks. Like really small breaks, but there weren't a ton of breaks. So you had like micro breaks. I never got to like chill for 15 minutes. In between people, I'd sit down as much as I could.
Something that can be worked on.
Basically drank a lot of coffee. A lot of coffee.
Tell me more about what you want to troll.
There was a lunch. We did break for lunch. That was it though. So no like real breaks. And sometimes your assistant, like my assistant was my girlfriend that day, and she was learning. But it's great when you have someone that you can have kind of cover you. Like she's not at that point, but like other jobs, I've had assistants that I knew could cover me, so I could go and like if I had to like use the restroom or something, I could. That's always beneficial. Yeah, I agree. They're pretty dumb. I try to vote with my wallet. I won't watch those videos about cameras. There's very few people. So if there is a new camera and I'm curious, I'll consume a video on it, and then I'm selective about who I'll watch. I think it's Gordon from Camera Labs. I like it. It's very, factual, to the point. I like his reviews. I'm mildly entertained by DP reviews, Chris and Jordan. But I will not watch a lot of the other people. I just refuse to. I don't, like I consume YouTube just like you guys, I'm not just making content. I watch, but I've gradually stopped watching almost any photography content because I've been frustrated, And unfortunately, like, you can't blame them entirely. You can't. Their job isn't photographer. Their job is YouTuber. And they have to make YouTube videos that get watched. But it's kind of interesting, They're making content that gets views, but that content it makes it clear that they're not a working photographer. And you don't have to be, But I think it's smart for people to know what they're consuming, You're listening to like watching a YouTuber talk about a 1DX Mark, what are we at, 3 now, is so ridiculous to me. Like, it's like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, you will never own or use that camera. It's not intended for you. But people actually using that camera aren't on YouTube.
All right, we'll try one more. We have great stuff, but rotate that
The
one.
reason I made a YouTube, it was like, I don't use my photography to fuel my YouTube. I use my YouTube to fuel my photography. Basically, it helps me get my work out there. It helps me create links to my website, all of that. My objective for YouTube was just to improve my photography business. My photography business isn't here to fuel my YouTube. And ultimately, I wanted to really help people, But I understand. I'm not bitter that my work doesn't get like 500,000 views. I'm not making the kind of content that would. but it does make it hard for people to find it, not because it's all people care about, gear. It would be easy for me to say, oh, people only care about gear and be bitter. Gear, like Canon R5 is a searchable term, but putting the kind of content out there that I do, it's not as searchable. Like my philosophy videos on photography, nobody's searching for that, so of course it's not going to get seen by a lot of people.
I'm actually a very famous photographer, and they're doing a show on me.
Yes, I agree. They are content creators. That's what they are. Yeah.
I'm a narcissist, so I pay.
One big YouTuber made a video where he addressed it, and he started out making content about photography, about different photographers and that kind of thing. And his argument was, yeah, I make those videos and nobody watches them. But I didn't forget, because I used to be a fan of the channel, that you got where you are by making videos about real photography. And you just, seems to me like you gave that up. It is doable, but I guess he was having a lot more success making gear review videos. I don't know. And everyone's entitled to make the kind of content they want. I don't think you have to be a professional actually to review gear, but I think it's important that viewers understand your perspective. That white-haired lady seems to enjoy the session. Yeah, I mean, you make it fun. You've got to make it fun. Pretty much any type of job, you want your clients to go home and feel really good. Like in my not my last video, I think, but 2 videos ago, I did a video on engagement sessions, and my objective is sort of to make sure they have a good day. Like it should feel like one of the best dates they've ever been on. That's what an engagement session should feel like, in my opinion. So I make it fun. I let them have their own space to interact with each other and just like let these natural moments come out, and then I document it. And usually they have an ear-to-ear smile by the end of the day. And shooting a professional portrait, why not? Why not make sure they have a great day, have a good time with you, So Douglas says Sean Tucker is good. He breaks the mold. You'd like him. I'm familiar with his channel, and I do agree. I don't watch it because, like I said, I don't really watch other photographers too much anymore. The ones I do watch are small channels that, they're usually channels that started around when I started, and they're kind of like my peers, and like I've worked with them, and I could talk to them about the experience. Those are the people I watch, but I don't watch the large channels, and I won't even name them by name. Sean Tucker I like. Yeah, he gets into some philosophy. He's made some videos where I was like, oh, I was going to make that video, but he made it. 400,000 people saw it, so I'm not going to make it, Okay, guys, I'm going to wind it down. So now is the time to ask a question if you have any. Also, let me know if you have any tips, anything you'd like to see in future live videos. I saw somewhere that live videos actually hurt your channel health and that you should delete them. I don't really want to do that because I don't know. I don't want to do that. Like if I feel like if they'll help people, I don't know. But you guys can help me keep these videos active by sharing them and that kind of thing. So like I said, I'm going to go chronologically for the most part, but if you guys have a specific job that you'd like to see, like a job type, I'd be happy to share it. Linda asked for a smaller job, and I'm going to look for one, for example, like children's birthday parties, that kind of thing. I do have a few in mind. I'm going to ask a long-term client of mine if I could share one of their birthday parties because I know they'd be okay with it. But it's trickier to share work that have children involved, you want permission. Yeah, I enjoyed making that video about engagement sessions, you know. So kind of circling back to what I was saying earlier, when I was younger, I started to really resent a lot of like the wedding industry, and it ruined it for me. But now I realize I actually kind of like them when I don't have all that baggage and I'm just there to document beautiful moments, and who cares about the industry? I have a good time. So when I do shoot weddings now, I enjoy them, you know? And also, starting out, I felt more pressure to deliver what the trends were. I felt the pressure to do creative, quote, creative portraiture, you know, which were really just cheesy to me. Like all the groomsmen holding the bride sideways, that kind of stuff. I didn't like it. And I felt like there was a pressure to do it because I was a newer, younger photographer. Now, I'm very confident in what I do. You know I have a very clear objective. I know what I'm about. I knew what I was about then, but I'm like unashamed of it. I'm like, look, don't hire me if you want cheesy portraits. Just don't hire me. I'm the person that's going to capture those meaningful moments. That's what I've always done. And now I have the confidence, having done this for a while, to do it. Oh, I'm seeing in the video I did shoot with the 70 to 200. I forgot. I think I just experimented a bit. Mostly I shot the 85 and the 135.
Or even worse, I'll come and take the wheel. All right, you're set. Thank you. Except you just did. Are we done?
Linda says, it's great seeing my lighting setup. Yeah, I hope what you can take away from it isn't like,
I think that
not try to directly emulate it exactly, but to understand why I chose it.
many interests.
So, beauty dish for a really flattering key light, reflector for fill lights. I've got a gridded light for a rim light, and sometimes, and I don't recall if you saw it in the video because I'm not watching the video along with you guys at all times, but sometimes I'm using a strip box to add kind of like a highlight on the left side of the face.
I thought you wanted
Another suggestion would be birthday parties, family ones like weddings and anniversaries too. Yes, good idea. Yeah, I guess what I need to remember is that there's a very, very small amount of photographers that are doing like the big corporate events as their bread and butter. I think the vast majority of events are smaller birthday parties, that kind of thing, engagement parties, etc. Anniversary parties, graduation parties, all that. So I have done plenty of them, so I'm going to look for those. I'm happy to do that for you guys. All right, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all of you. I really do appreciate your feedback. I have a community tab in YouTube where I'll like ask you guys questions. Make sure you check those out. I'm really trying to tailor these to you guys. I'm not just, making videos for my own narcissism where I'm just going to like put my work out there because I think I'm so great. I want to help people, and you guys letting me know how I can help you will help me. All right, that's going to be it. Appreciate all of you again. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys tomorrow.